I have exited Discovery. I'm a free agent. What?
After years of rumors, Richard Rawlings is finally coming clean. The Fast and Loud star admits he's been hiding a dark secret that explains everything: why his marriages failed, why he suddenly sold his car collection, and why Discovery really cancelled his show. At 55, he's finally ready to tell the truth about what happened in that $6 million legal battle. And trust us, it's way worse than anyone imagined. Richard Rawlings was born on March 30, 1969, in a working-class neighborhood in Fort Worth, Texas. Long before he became a TV personality and automotive mogul, his world already revolved around cars. One of the earliest photos of him shows a small boy sitting proudly in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't just a toy, it was a glimpse of what was coming. While most kids were watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, Richard had a different routine. At 3 o'clock in the morning, when most of the city was still asleep, he'd get up and head out with his dad to deliver newspapers. They'd roll up stacks, drive through dark neighborhoods, and toss papers onto driveways. After school, Richard did the same thing again for the afternoon edition. On weekends, he'd ride his bike from house to house collecting payments. What really stood out during those rounds wasn't just the money, it was the cars. He started noticing every single one. He knew which house had what make, what model, what year. Some customers were surprised by how much he knew. His answer was always simple: I ride by your house twice a day most days of the week, how wouldn't I know what's in your driveway? His father, who worked 2 or sometimes 3 jobs, always made sure he had one thing for himself: a car or a motorcycle. That single toy was his reward, and that lesson stuck. Richard watched and learned: if you wanted something special, you had to earn it. By the time he was 14, Richard bought his first car. It was 1983. The car was a green 1974 Mercury Comet. He paid for it with money he'd saved from years of newspaper routes. Most kids were dreaming about turning 16. Richard was already driving. Well, not legally, but that didn't stop him. That Comet wasn't just a ride, it was a statement. At school, he'd burn rubber in the parking lot doing donuts just to show what it could do. His classmates still talk about it. Despite the ugly green color, he thought it was the coolest car ever made. Things moved fast after that. By senior year in 1987, he was already on his third car. This time it was a black 1977 Bandit Transom. It looked like something straight out of Smokey and the Bandit, and it made him the go-to car guy at Eastern Hills High School. But it wasn't just about showing off. He was flipping cars too, buying, fixing, selling. Before graduation, he had already flipped around 20 different vehicles. He made more doing that than most teens earned with part-time jobs. And he wasn't guessing, he had an eye for spotting deals, improving them just enough, and convincing people to pay more than he did. It was the foundation of everything that came later. In the early 90s, when he was just 22, Rawlings faced something much more serious. He was driving a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 Fastback, a classic muscle car with the kind of roofline collectors dream about. One night, while cruising through a rough area near Oakland Boulevard in Fort Worth, he was ambushed by carjackers. They tried to pull him out of the driver's seat. Richard fought back. In the struggle, a bullet ripped through his shoulder and traveled down his left arm. He survived. He could have walked away from car culture forever. Instead, it only made him more determined. Between 1988 and 1990, before the tattoos, the fame, or the garage, Richard wore 3 uniforms. He worked as a police officer, a firefighter, and a paramedic, all before turning 21. His dad always said, "You get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch." Richard listened, at least at first. It all changed in 1988 when he was delivering Miller Lite to a local bar. One of the regulars, who he thought was just another drunk, asked him what he planned to do with his life. Richard mentioned law enforcement but said he couldn't afford to go to the academy. The man looked at him and said, "Damn it, I'm the mayor of so-and-so city." Within 17 days, Richard was enrolled at the North Texas Police Academy. He served in Alvarado as a cop. Then he became a firefighter in Capel. He wore multiple hats and learned how to stay calm when things fell apart. Those crisis management skills would later help him in business. But by 25, he needed a change. He sold everything he owned and bought a Jeep. He took off for California hoping to start something new. Back then, he was clean-cut, no tattoos, no piercings. 6 months later, he came back to Texas broke, with tattoos, pierced ears, and no Jeep. It had been repossessed. He was sleeping on his sister's couch. That low point didn't break him, it focused him. He needed to start something of his own, and that's when he launched Lincoln Press in 1999. It was a printing and advertising company in Dallas. He had no background in printing, but he understood branding. He took out a $100,000 small business loan to get started. Within 5 years, Lincoln Press was booming. In 2004, he offered a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first client who spent $1 million with the company. That stunt worked. The company kept growing. Eventually, he sold it. That sale gave him the money he needed to chase his real dream, cars. When Richard Rawlings launched Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas back in 2002, things didn't exactly take off. The shop was small. It didn't even have running water or air conditioning. And it was built using money from the sale of his earlier business, Lincoln Press. It was a rough start. Rawlings had the passion, but not the resources. Still, he believed in what he was building. So he and his small team hit the road, traveling to car shows, trade events, and rallies across the country, doing whatever it took to get the name Gas Monkey out there. In May 2007, he and his friend Dennis Collins set out to break one of the most legendary records in car culture, the Cannonball Run. The original record, set in 1979, stood at 32 hours and 51 minutes. That was the time it took to drive coast to coast from New York City to Los Angeles with nothing but speed on the mind. The record was untouched for nearly 3 decades. On May 12, 2007, Rawlings and Collins decided to give it a shot. They skipped out on the planned Bull Run rally route from Montreal to Key West and instead aimed straight for the record. They drove a modified Ferrari 550 Maranello fitted with extra fuel tanks so they wouldn't have to stop as often. They left Manhattan under the cover of night and reached the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach just 31 hours and 59 minutes later. They had done it. They broke a record that had lasted for 28 years, averaging 87.6 miles per hour across 2,811 miles of road. Not everyone believed it at first. Some questioned the route or compared it to the original runs. But even with the controversy, the feat stood out. It was bold, it was dangerous, and it was real enough to earn Rawlings a personal nod from Jay Leno, a moment that meant more than most people realized. Jay Leno isn't just a car guy, he's the car guy. His garage is filled with hundreds of classic and rare vehicles. His knowledge runs deep, and his respect in the automotive world is massive so. When Leno recognized Rawlings for breaking the Cannonball Run record, it wasn't just praise, it was a powerful stamp of approval. This was years before Fast and Loud made Rawlings a household name, but that nod from Leno helped give him serious credibility in the car world, and Rawlings needed that credibility. Between 2002 and 2012, getting Gas Monkey off the ground was anything but easy. He poured every dollar he had into the business. He worked out of a garage with no air conditioning, no running water, and barely enough tools to get by. He had trouble finding good mechanics, struggled to track down the right parts, and had to fight just to keep the lights on. Every project was a risk, every customer had to be earned. During that time, Rawlings started pitching his idea for a show. He wanted to bring car restoration to a wider audience, not just gearheads but families, kids, anyone who liked a good story with some horsepower behind it. But networks didn't bite. The idea felt too niche or too risky. So, while waiting for a chance, he kept pushing the brand by hitting the road, more car shows, more meetups, more face-to-face connections. It was slow work, but it built something strong. By the time Discovery finally said yes in 2012, the name Gas Monkey already carried weight in the car community. When Fast and Loud first aired on June 6, 2012, nobody knew it would turn a Dallas garage into a global brand. At the center of it all was Richard Rawlings. Before the cameras showed up, he was just a guy running Gas Monkey Garage. After the show took off, he became a face recognized in over 200 countries. It wasn't just a hit in the US, the show was translated into 13 languages. That level of reach turned Rawlings into a major player in the entertainment world almost overnight. The concept was simple but powerful. Rawlings and his team searched for forgotten classic cars. Most were beat up or barely running. They brought the cars back to life, made them shine, then sold them for profit. But what made the show Standout was its tone. While other shows leaned into heavy drama or targeted niche audiences, Fast and Loud aimed wide. Rawlings described it as something both kids and grandparents could enjoy. He didn't want to make just another car show, he wanted it to be fun and fast-moving, and he wanted everyone to feel welcome watching it. The strategy worked, viewers got hooked on the cars, the builds, and the energy, but the real turning point came when Rawlings used that success to expand far beyond TV. He launched Gas Monkey restaurants, clothing lines, energy drinks, tequila, vodka, and more. The garage was still there, but now it was the foundation for something much bigger. By 2020, Rawlings had built an entire empire. Even though the show ended on June 8, 2020, after 16 seasons and 155 episodes, the brand was stronger than ever. The reason for the show's success came down to what Rawlings called his cash money formula. It was all about buying smart and selling smarter. He would travel across the country, find classic cars in rough shape, then use hard negotiation and quick cash to close deals fast. Sometimes he carried thousands of dollars with him just to get a seller to say yes on the spot. He once said, "You can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000 if you've got it in your pocket." That line wasn't just good TV, it was his real-life strategy, and it worked. One of the best examples of the formula in action was a Dodge Challenger build. Rawlings bought it for just over $40,000. The team poured $77,000 into the restoration, adding unique upgrades and features. When the car sold, it went for $150,000. That was a profit of $73,000 on a single flip. It wasn't just luck, it was the result of sharp instincts, smart spending, and a deep understanding of what buyers wanted. What also set Fast and Loud apart was Rawlings's willingness to take risks. He often bought vehicles most people wouldn't touch: rust buckets, frame damaged cars that looked like they'd been forgotten for decades. Even his own team sometimes questioned his decisions, but Rawlings could see potential that others missed. One time he bought a supercar for $400,000. It had serious mechanical issues after a failure with the previous owner. Still, Gas Monkey Garage turned it around. After the rebuild, the car sold for a major profit. That kind of high-stakes gamble became part of the show's identity. These rusted-out cars weren't just about money, they brought drama and depth to the show. Each car had a story, each restoration had problems to solve. Viewers got to see how much time, money, and effort went into the transformation. Some builds didn't go as planned, some took longer than expected. Not every car made a profit, but that was part of the appeal. It showed the risk behind the reward and gave people a real look at the business side of car restoration. Over time, Fast and Loud became one of Discovery Channel's most successful reality shows. It ran from June 2012 to June 2020. That's 8 full years of builds, flips, and wild road trips. By season 4, the show had hit its stride. That season brought in tight deadlines, unexpected problems, and last-minute repairs that added tension. Viewers never knew if the team would finish a car on time or if the deal would fall through. That mix of pressure and payoff kept people watching. But in 2020, Rawlings made a big decision on the Joe Rogan Experience. He revealed that he had ended his partnership with Discovery. The reason came down to control. He wanted more creative freedom and didn't want to be locked into contracts that limited what he could do next. Leaving the network was a risk, but it also opened new doors. Since then, Rawlings has continued to build his brand through YouTube, new media projects, and the ongoing success of Gas Monkey Garage. Richard Rawlings had already built a name for himself in the automotive world, but in 2013 he decided to take his brand beyond cars and engines. That year in September, he launched the first Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Northwest Dallas. It was built on the site of the old Firewater Bar and Grill and covered 19,000 square feet. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was part music venue, part bar, and all attitude. The place could hold up to 1,200 people, and Rawlings made sure to bring in real experience to run it. He hired Alex Mendancer, who had managed the House of Blues in Las Vegas, to lead the operation as general manager. David Hollister came in as the culinary manager to shape the food side of things. The venue didn't just open quietly either. 2 days before the official launch, the American rock band Old 97s played the very first live show there. The place had style and energy right from the start. By March 2014, Rawlings was ready to go bigger. He opened a second Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, this time at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport in Terminal D. It was a smart move. Travelers passing through one of the busiest airports in the country now had a place to grab food, hear some music, and get a taste of the Gas Monkey brand. Rawlings even spoke about wanting a third location outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He wasn't just experimenting, he was building something. The bar and grill became more than a restaurant, it turned into a hot spot where car culture, music, and nightlife came together. Later that same year, In October 2014, Rawlings took things up a notch right across the street from the original bar and grill he opened. Gas Monkey Live. It was massive, 38,000 square feet with room for 3,000 guests. Before Rawlings got hold of it, the place had been Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill. He turned it into a full-scale concert venue built for big shows and big crowds on opening night. Punk rock legends Social Distortion took the stage from there. The venue started pulling in huge acts and high-profile events. One of the most talked-about moments came in November 2014. Mötley Crüe performed a free concert there as part of their All Bad Things Must End tour. The event was called Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey, and it wasn't open to everyone. Only Dodge vehicle owners were allowed in. The event wasn't just a concert, it was also a showcase for Dodge's newest models, including the Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Hellcat. The entire night brought together speed, sound, and spectacle. Gas Monkey Live also hosted private events, VIP parties, and corporate functions. It had green rooms and flexible spaces that made it easy to use for more than just music. Even with all the success, the venue hit hard times. By May 2020, Gas Monkey Live closed its doors. Financial pressure from the COVID-19 pandemic made it impossible to keep going. The closure marked the end of a bold chapter for Rawlings' push into live entertainment, but it didn't slow down his ambition. Back in 2014, the same year Gas Monkey Live opened, Rawlings became the national spokesperson for Dodge. His face was suddenly everywhere. Commercials showed him behind the wheel talking up Dodge performance and style. He was a familiar figure from Fast and Loud, and now he was helping Dodge sell cars across the country. One of the most memorable parts of this partnership was the Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey concert at his own venue. It was the perfect crossover: his love for cars, his music space, and a high-profile brand all coming together in one night. The deal helped Dodge connect with car fans while giving Rawlings a national spotlight. His influence in the auto world kept growing. Then in 2019, he made another move, this time into energy drinks, but instead of building a company from scratch, he licensed the Gas Monkey brand. That way he kept control of the image without taking on the costs of production. It was a smart decision. Gas Monkey Energy launched with 2 flavors, regular and light. The branding leaned into speed, power, and excitement, the same energy Rawlings brought to everything he did. By January 2025, the brand added a 3rd flavor called Tropical. It had a mix of mango, passion fruit, pineapple, lemon, and honey. It also kept away from high fructose corn syrup and artificial additives. The drink fit well with the lifestyle Rawlings promoted: bold, fast, and clean. The energy drinks were sold at convenience stores and online. They also appeared at major motorsports events like the Indianapolis 500 and NH races. Richard Rawlings has always lived life in the fast lane, but while his career took off with roaring engines and TV fame, his personal life followed a bumpier road. Long before Fast and Loud and Gas Monkey Garage turned him into a celebrity, Richard got married for the first time. It was 1993. He was still trying to find his place in the automotive world. His first wife, Karen K. Grahams, came into his life during those early uncertain days. The two got married that year, but the relationship didn't last. By 1994 they were divorced. The marriage had lasted less than a year. There was no fame yet, no fan base, no spotlight, just a young man chasing a dream, and a marriage that ended before it really began. Not much is known about Karen. She stayed out of the public eye, and their brief time together was never part of the headlines. But that first divorce was the start of a pattern. It showed how hard it was for Rawlings to balance ambition and personal life. The pressure to build something big came at a cost, and that cost kept showing up, especially in the years that followed. In 1999 he tried again, this time with Suzanne Marie Merrill. They got married in Las Vegas right as Rawlings was starting to make progress with Gas Monkey Garage. Things were beginning to work out professionally, but personally the strain was still there. His business was growing fast. He was traveling often. After 10 years the relationship hit a breaking point. In 2009 they divorced. For most people that might have been the end, but Richard and Suzanne had a complicated bond. In 2015, 6 years after the split, they got back together. They were in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and decided to give marriage another shot. It seemed hopeful, a second chance after years of growing and changing, but it didn't last. By March 2019 Rawlings went public again, this time on Twitter, announcing that he and Suzanne were separating. He posted the message on March 11, 2019. It was unusual but direct. He said that media outlets like TMZ were already reporting on it, so he wanted to be the one to tell his fans. He explained that the decision was mutual. He and Suzanne still cared for each other, but after more than 20 years of being on and off, they had reached the end. That second divorce moved quickly. Suzanne walked away with a financial settlement. Rawlings paid her $300,000 in 2 parts. She also kept her Mercedes SL 450 Roadster. Despite everything, Richard spoke kindly about their time together. He said they had shared something real, even if it didn't last. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, the same person both times. It said a lot about how hard it was for him to make personal life and public life fit together. Then came Katerina Dai's son. Her name made headlines for another reason. She had previously been married to Darwin Dai's son, a Texas billionaire who sold his company-affiliated computer services to Xerox for $6 billion. Katerina had spent years in that world, private jet, super yachts like Apogee, and a lifestyle built around unimaginable wealth. But in 2019 her life changed. She and Richard started dating not long after his split from Suzanne. Things moved fast. On August 17, 2019, Richard proposed at Tulum Resort in Mexico. He filled the beach with rose petals and posted on social media that he had found his soulmate. They got married on June 28, 2020 in Key West, Florida. The ceremony was small. COVID-19 had forced them to cancel the big wedding they had planned in Greece, but the moment was still meaningful. Katerina had left one world behind and stepped into another, from a billionaire's wife to a reality TV star's partner. It was a big shift, but one that seemed to suit her. In June 2018, something unexpected hit the custom car world. Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, a popular spot in Dallas, filed a $6 million defamation lawsuit against its own founder, Richard Rawlings. It shocked fans and followers of the Gas Monkey brand. The lawsuit accused Rawlings of trying to break away from his business partners through what they called deliberate and deceitful attempts to avoid his contracts. The legal document was 47 pages long and full of details. It described how the relationship had started falling apart as early as May 2013, even before the bar opened. One former employee, Tim Hinkhouse, wrote an email back then saying Rawlings treated construction workers terribly. He even compared him to a spoiled 13-year-old. Things got so bad that Rawlings was reportedly banned from the construction site. That moment said a lot. Tensions between him and the team were already out of control after the bar opened later in 2013. The issues didn't stop. According to the lawsuit, Rawlings kept showing up uninvited, disrupting staff, and trying to take control of decisions. It created a toxic work environment. The situation reached a breaking point in 2015. That's when Rawlings sent a serious email to Daniel Flitty, the bar's managing member, claiming that important financial records had gone missing. Flirty quickly replied and invited Rawlings to check the records in person, but Rawlings refused. He replied saying he didn't believe the records existed at all. That accusation, one suggesting theft or fraud, would have serious consequences. On July 18, 2015, Flirty wrote back reminding Rawlings that he had always been welcome to audit the books. That email became a key piece of evidence in court. Rawlings eventually apologized for his behavior and blamed it on drinking, but for Flaherty and the rest of the team, the damage had already been done. The lawsuit argued that Rawlings's actions had scared off vendors and business partners. It said his public accusations hurt the bar's reputation and made it harder to keep things running. The problems didn't end there. In 2017, when someone showed interest in buying the Gas Monkey Bar brand, Rawlings stepped in again. He made more accusations of financial mismanagement and ruined the deal. That incident became another central point in the lawsuit. Then in 2019, Rawlings struck back. On March 28 at 2:15 p.m. he filed a $1 million countersuit for copyright infringement. He claimed the bar had kept using the Gas Monkey name and logos after their agreement ended. His team argued that by late 2018 the licensing rights had expired and hadn't been renewed. Still, the bar kept using the brand. What made it even more intense was Rawlings's claim that his brand was being used to promote lewd and sexually suggestive events. He said it hurt his image and his intellectual property. About a month earlier, on February 25, 2019, Rawlings had sent a cease and desist letter demanding the bar stop using the brand. He gave them 10 days. When they didn't comply, he filed the countersuit. His $1 million claim was based on lost licensing revenue and damage to the value of the Gas Monkey brand. At the time, rumors had already started swirling. People were saying the bar was in financial trouble. One of its sister venues, Gas Monkey Live, had closed down. Some believed Rawlings was trying to distance himself from a sinking ship while protecting his name. These legal battles captured the attention of car fans and legal experts alike. The feud between Rawlings and his former partners turned into a messy public drama, and while the lawsuits played out, Rawlings was busy moving on. After Fast and Loud ended, he launched a podcast called Monkey Trap. It gave him a place to speak directly to fans and bring on guests From all kinds of industries. One of them was Cord Newman, a Hollywood stuntman known for setting himself on fire during an episode. The podcast mixed behind-the-scenes stories with high-energy interviews. It was another way for Rawlings to stay in the spotlight. Then came the cars. In September 2023, Rawlings made a bold move. He auctioned off nearly 30 vehicles from his personal collection through Bring a Trailer. The total sales hit 180.93. The lineup included a 1962 Chevy Corvette that sold for $60,000, a 1965 Ford Mustang Fastback Code that went for $75,000, and a rare 1993 Toyota Supra that brought in $121,000. That Supra was the top earner of the auction. Rawlings explained his decision as a shift in focus. He wanted to move away from what he called beer budget cars and start collecting high-end European models. At the same time, he auctioned off a Gas Monkey Garage experience for charity. It raised $16,500 for the Gas Monkey Foundation with cash in hand and space cleared out. Rawlings started rebuilding his collection. He announced plans to focus on Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and vintage European cars. He was especially drawn to models from the 1970s and 1980s. One highlight came during a trip to Ireland where he bought 5 Ferrari Testarossas. One of them had been converted into an electric vehicle and turned heads at SEMA 2023. By early 2024, Rawlings had already reinvested over $1 million into his new direction. He wasn't just changing what he drove, he was reinventing himself. From a messy lawsuit to a high-end collection of Ferraris, his story keeps evolving. Whether you admire him or criticize him, there's no denying Richard Rawlings knows how to stay in the spotlight.